Good morning. We will call this meeting to order. First order of business is roll call to make sure we have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Member Merritt.
Excuse
Member
me,
Durrett.
this is Christy Joyce, the court reporter. Can I just remind people to state their appearances before they speak, please?
Yes, thank you. Tyler Climas for the record. I'll take roll call. Member Merritt.
Present.
Member Durrett.
Here.
Member Young.
Present.
Member Nylander.
Present.
And Justice Douglas.
Present.
Great. Deputy Bordelove, can you confirm that we have complied with the open meeting law requirements?
Yes.
Thank you. Chair.
Chair Douglas, first order of business is public comment.
Great. Do we have anyone in Carson City wishing to provide public comment at this time?
It appears no one is, multiple people here, but no one, I guess, is here for public comment.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go to Las Vegas. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to provide public comment at this time? Chair, I see no public comment.
That being the case, we will move to meeting minutes. We have an A and a B. Probably makes sense to take them separately, just to make sure we don't have any changes or add-ons to the record. As to item A under 2, consideration for approval of the March 22nd, 2020 Cannabis Compliance Board meeting minutes for possible action. Any additions or corrections or questions by any of the board members? If there is none, if we can have a motion for approval of item A under 2.
Jerry Merritt for the record. I move to approve.
We have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Member Durrett, I second.
We have a motion for approval and a second. Any additional discussion or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none. All in favor of approval of accepting the minutes for the March 22nd, 2022 Cannabis Compliance Board meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Matter carries unanimously. Moving to the B item, consideration for approval of the March 22, 2022 Cannabis Compliance Board workshop minutes for possible action.
Member Durrett, I move to approve the March 22nd workshop minutes.
We have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Member Merritt, I second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion or any corrections? Hearing none, all in favor of the acceptance, please say aye.
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 Any abstentions? Matter carries unanimously. That moves us to item number 3, consent agenda. First item of business is complaints. We have 2, and if we can go forward with this.
Thank you. So item 3A, this is Tyler Climas for the record. Item 3A on the agenda concerns 2 complaints for disciplinary action pursuant to NRS 678-8510. The Attorney General has reviewed these violations and has recommended proceeding with disciplinary action. As usual, I'm requesting the board's approval to proceed with each of these 2 disciplinary actions. And if approved, I'll then authorize service of the complaints. As service is now in the hands of the executive director, we're not required to immediately serve both complaints today. However, once the board has approved proceeding with disciplinary action, service will proceed within a reasonable time. Both complaints will be filed and posted on our website. As to respondent A, the complaint will allege violations of NRS Chapter 678B, NCCR Regulation 4, 5, and 6. And as to respondent B, the complaint will allege violations of NCCR 4, 6, and 10. Chair, back to you.
All right, as to these matters, for the record, Chair Douglas, note that the board has not seen the complaints that are being offered today. We are only to approve the action by our director and the Attorney General's office pursuant to the statute. With that, do we have a motion for approval to go forward?
Member Dret, I move to approve proceeding with disciplinary action A and B, and B under agenda item 3A.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Member Merritt, I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion, questions as to these two items? Hearing none. All in favor of going forward with these matters, please say aye.
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 Approved unanimously as to 3A, 1 and 2. That moves us to B, conditional approval of request for transfer of interest.
Chair, agenda item 3B1 on the consent agenda consists of the first conditional TOI approval request to be considered by the board. At the March agenda, Chief Staley announced the implementation of a conditional TOI process, and this application is the first conditional TOI application that was both identified by staff and agreed to by applicants. TOI is number C21043, C21064, C22006, and C22007 involve the transfer of interest between current owners of Nevada Wellness LLC, the transfer of interest between current owners of Homegrown Vegas, the transfer of dispensary RD 505 between related entities, Nevada Wellness Center LLC and Nevada Wellness Center West LLC, and the sale of Homegrown Vegas LLC to Silver Black Attack LLC, an additional Nevada Wellness affiliated entity. The conditions to the conditional TOI were explained to the applicants, and the applicants have all signed a conditional transfer of interest agreement. I will also sign the agreement if this conditional TOI is approved by the board. The conditional TOI review also revealed that Homegrown Vegas LLC has a number of late filed tax returns with the Department of Taxation during the last 3 years. So CCB staff suggests that if the board approves this conditional TOI, that the board also refers the Homegrown Vegas tax issues to the Attorney General's office and CCB staff for further investigation. So with that, Chair, I will turn it back to you. And Chief Staley's here to answer any other questions.
Thank you. Chief Staley, do you wish to make any presentation as a this item?
David Staley for the record. Chair Douglas, not at this time. I am available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Mr. Hawkins or counsel on his behalf wish to make any statement this morning? We know it by the nod. Mr. Parker.
Good morning, Chairman Douglas. Good morning, board members. On behalf of Nevada Wellness Center, Theodore Parker, we have nothing really to add. I think Mr. Staley and I and Mr. Hawkins and Staley and I have had numerous conversations. We've exchanged several emails. I think everything has been fleshed out. I appreciate Mr. Klimas giving me his nod of approval earlier today in terms of the exchange of information. I think everything's before the board, and I think you're equipped to make a correct decision on this. Thank you.
Thank you. For the record, Chair Douglas, I would make a motion for approval of the conditional approval of the request for transfer of interest with the condition as outlined, not as to Mr. Hawkins' concerns, because there's no problem on his side, but with the other party, that they be referred to staff for consideration of the late pay on taxes. Just for the record, there's a concern. This is a business, and payment of taxes needs to be on time. We know that the taxes are currently paid, so at one point it's not a concern, but this is a business, and as a business, privileged business where the funds go to state educational fund, these need to be paid when they are due, not party thinks they should pay. So that would be my motion, that we approve the condition of approval and also send Homegrown Vegas to our attorneys to see whether or not there's any disciplinary action that should take place. Is there a second?
Member
This is
Dret,
Member
a
Young. I'll
second.
second that.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any additional discussion statements by any board member?
Mr. Chairman, this is Member Nylander. Just wanted to echo your comments, and unfortunately, we're seeing more and more of these. So it is a concern, and I appreciate your comments, but I'm prepared to support the motion.
With that, thank you. Any other member? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. That moves us to item number 4, presentation by Nevada State Treasurer Zach Conine on marijuana banking pilot program. And this is a discussion. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of the board. Thanks so much for having me today. I have the pleasure of being Nevada State Treasurer Zach Conine. Well, I have the pleasure of being State Treasurer. I've always been Zach Conine. We appreciate the opportunity to share with you this morning an update on our office's efforts to implement a cashless payment system and banking system for the legal cannabis industry. Before I get started, I just want to thank Director Klimas and your team for being just absolutely wonderful as we work through this process. It's a brave new world for the Treasurer's Office, and we're happy to walk in there with you. During today's presentation, I'd like to hit on 4 main topics. We can go to the next slide. Fantastic. The program background and goals, program elements, progress to date, and of course, next steps. Moving on. By way of background, Assembly Bill 466 of the 2019 legislative session established a pilot program for a closed-loop payment processing system run by the Treasury. The bill requires the Treasury to contract with 1 or more qualified vendors to build a technology system and implement the system for users on a limited basis. While we are doing everything we can to make sure this program is a success, we recognize that the solutions to the problems faced by the cash-based cannabis business is a federal one. We are hopeful for the passage of the Federal Safe Banking Act. Additionally, of course, our office has supported and will continue to support efforts to deal with the 280E tax issue, which we know has created a massive burden on our legal cannabis businesses. Moving on to slide 4. Our goals, and I'll read them because the window's a little bit over. I'm not sure if we can move that little sub window. But the purpose of the pilot program is to test an innovative way to make the cash-based system much safer. Cash-based businesses, as we all know, create inherent public safety risks by holding, transporting, and distributing large sums of cash. These risks can be mitigated by a closed-loop payment processing system which will hold and distribute cash transactions internally. Along with safety, this program also provides additional transparency. A closed-loop payment system tracks and records every transaction so that users, law enforcement, regulatory bodies know exactly where the money is going and coming from. Similarly, our goal for the program is to offer users a more efficient process than what currently exists. Cash-based businesses create operational inefficiencies by demanding additional time and resources for processes, such as ensuring accuracy in bill counts, securing cash, and transporting cash. A closed-loop payment processing system eliminates and reduces those processes. A closed-loop payment processing system also gives us the opportunity to deal with some of the banking inequities that we've seen over time, where businesses that do not have legacy sources of capital or access to family money can be kept out of the industry. And finally, the closed-loop payment processing system will discourage bad actors and criminal enterprises from taking advantage of the current cash-based system. Moving on to slide 5. Program elements. We can break the program down into 4 distinct elements. First are the program participants or users. Next is the closed-loop payment processing system, which is the actual technology that serves as the primary component of the program and is the entry and exit point for closed-loop transactions and payments. Number 3 is cash vaulting services, the physical kiosks within dispensaries and other locations in which users can deposit US dollars for inputting into their system account, as well as the courier system to transfer the US dollars from the kiosks into the program's bank accounts. And finally, the Treasury, similar to the state's main bank accounts, will oversee and monitor the vendor systems and the bank account in conjunction with our partnering bank. The Treasurer's Office will reconcile all transactions in the bank account against the vendor systems and the state's accounting systems as appropriate. This will include the review and redemption of all tokens for US dollars. Slide 6. The program is voluntary for MRBs. None are, of course, required to participate. This is a pilot program. At the outset, we're targeting 5 to 10 locations to participate in the first phase. The initial limited scope of the program will allow us and the system vendor the opportunity to quickly troubleshoot issues as they arise, and I'm sure they will, and determine additional necessary functionality or operations prior to implementing it for a wider office. The limited scope will also allow our office to work with the banks to gain historical trends on cash flow, bank balances, transaction activity, and other items which will affect the resources needed to maintain and reconcile the account. The initial program launch will not include consumers. However, the office, in consultation with program stakeholders, shall consider the addition of consumers after the program has been successful on a business-to-business level. Moving on to the next slide. The state's vendors have built out an IT system that will allow for transactions within a closed loop. Program will function much in the same way as a casino chip does, and so I feel like this is an appropriate room to be talking about it. A user will deposit cash into a vault that exchanges cash for digital tokens, which will then be used to purchase products from other system users. At the end of the cycle, following verification, system users will request redemption of their tokens for an equivalent amount of US dollars. In other words, US dollars go into the system. A digital representation of those dollars is created and owned by the business who has created it. They can then use those digital representations to purchase product from other people within this closed loop system. Much like a casino chip can be, you can walk up to a blackjack table, get $100 in chips, walk over to a roulette table, do whatever you're going to do, and then eventually walk back to the cage and replace it with US dollars. Similar system, just electronically and with a significant more work. The system will have standard functionalities. For instance, each user will have a unique account identifier into a username and the ability to securely log in and transact, much in the same way someone is allowed to log into their bank's website, view their checking account balance, transfer money from one account to another. Instead of US dollars, user accounts will transact with one another using these digital tokens, which represent a series of debits and credits amongst the users. Finally, users will have the ability to request redemption of tokens throughout the system, which allows them to trade in their tokens for US dollars. Each transaction between users is appended with information such as what the transaction was for, the date and time, the quantity, etc., including tax information so that we can coordinate with taxation to make sure that they've got all the information they need. And of course, with Director Klimas's group to make sure that all the compliance is taken care of. Moving on to slide 8. Vaulting. Vaulting encompasses two primary areas, the actual cash vaults or kiosks and armored car pickups and drop-offs. Subcontractors will provide and maintain cash vaults for program users. Each user will lease a cash vault, which will be housed at the user's location and operate similarly to a reverse ATM. Money goes in, money does not come out. Both vault types will connect directly into their systems and individual user accounts versus through APIs or application programming interfaces. The vaults will receive and secure US dollars and create an equivalent amount of tokens creditable to a user's account within the system.
Excuse me, this is the court reporter. You're breaking up all of a sudden. So if you could slow down a little and go back maybe 2 bullet points, please.
Treasurer Cronin, for the record, it would be my pleasure. Slowing down might be a little difficult, but I'll do my damnedest. Excuse me. Going back to the beginning of the slide, vaulting encompasses two primary areas, the actual cash vaults or kiosks and the armored car pickups and drop-offs. Subcontractors will provide and maintain cash vaults for program users. Each user will lease a cash vault, which will be housed at each user's location and will operate similarly to a reverse ATM. Money goes in, money does not come out. Both vault types will connect directly into the systems and individual user accounts through APIs. The vaults will receive and secure US dollars and create an equivalent number of tokens creditable to a user's account within a system. When taking in US dollars, vaults will log the serial number of any deposited US dollar and scan and flag any deposited US dollars that appear to be fraudulent or fake. Cash pickups and drop-offs will also be provided by the subcontractors. Vaults used by the vendor will automatically schedule armored car pickups once the vault hit a certain capacity, around 80%. Users may also request an armored car pickup regardless of vault capacity if future business expectations warrant it. Moving on to slide 9. Thank you. The bank account will be a state-owned account and will house all deposits made into the system. Accordingly, all transactions within the system will be secured by the cash equivalent held within the state's coffers. All cash deposited into the account shall remain until a request for redemption should be made. Similar, again, to the casino, right? The casino needs to have enough money in the cage in order to redeem every chip on the floor. Substantially similar process. Once a request for redemption has been made and verified, the state will request funds from the banking partner to facilitate payment of the user in the equivalent value of US dollars. Slide 10 will give you a little bit of a run through of what I just said visually. But as you can see on the top, users deposit cash in vaults. The system creates tokens. And at the same time, a token gets created. The chip is given to the user, while at the same time, the money goes into the vault behind the picture-in-picture. Subcontractor brings that cash to the banks. Banks hold on to the cash to our bank account while the systems move through the concept. So in a real life scenario, right, a dispensary takes in cash. That cash goes into their vault. They have tokens. They need to pay one of their production partners. They pay their production partner using the system as opposed to transporting cash around town. Then that production partner can pay its cultivation partner. Cultivation partner can pay its utility. And if the utility has no need for the tokens, they will redeem them with the state, and they get the money that they need. So the money is now transported hands a number of times. We have massive transactional awareness into what's happening, which is generally good from a tax collection purpose and for other reasons. And we don't have to transport cash all over town. Next slide, please. A little bit of update on progress to date. Early on in the process, we held stakeholder meetings in Northern and Southern Nevada to collect input on the functions and features of the program that would be useful to cannabis businesses. Along with the stakeholder feedback, our team did research into similar systems such as transit cards used to purchase bulk fare and public transportation, and what functions would be most effective.
Excuse me.
in our closed loop.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt again, but I don't know if I'm the only one that's having a microphone cutting in and out. So it's very difficult when you're speaking this fast. So if you can please slow down again.
Sorry about that, man. Again, Treasurer Conan for the record. Slide 11, progress to date. Early on in the program, we held stakeholder meetings in Northern and Southern Nevada to collect inputs on the functions and features of the program that would be useful to cannabis businesses. Along with the stakeholder feedback, our team did research into similar systems, such as transit cards used to purchase bulk fares on public transportation, and which function on a closed loop. From this feedback and research, we drafted and posted a request for proposal, or RFP, which resulted in the identification of 2 vendors. Once the vendors were identified and the system began to take shape, we presented the program's plan to the Interim Finance Committee of the state legislature, as was required under the bill language. We received the committee's approval to move forward with the execution of the program. Finally, our team worked diligently to find a banking partner for the system, which we have done. Moving on to slide 12, next steps. Okay. We are now at the final stage to get the program up and running. Currently, we're working on a request to the Board of Finance to open a state-owned bank account, which, as described, will house all of the deposits on behalf of the program. At the same time, we're working to recruit cannabis-related businesses who may be interested in participating in the program. As indicated previously, we are looking to identify businesses, hopefully with pre-existing relationships with other potential partners on the closed loop. We're looking for alternative solutions to the current cash-only system. Once we have established who the first users will be, we will connect them directly with the vendors to get set up for onboarding and implementation. Finally, we will officially go live. If successful, we'll use to add users incrementally as we test the functionalities of the system and program. Encourage any cannabis-related businesses who may be interested in learning more, participating in the program, please reach out to us. Our contact information is on the last slide, where you can always just reach out to us through ask@nevadatreasurer.gov. My chief of staff, Kurt Van Rij, has been helping us with these slides today, and also running this program. Would be happy to help anyone as they get more information or perhaps sign up. I'm happy to take any questions slowly.
For the record, slowly, Chair Douglas, members of our board, do you have any questions or statements they wish to make as to this presentation?
I have questions. So they will be able to pay utilities using the system? Do you anticipate?
Treasurer Conan, for the record, we do.
Oh, wow. And could they possibly do payroll through the system?
Treasurer Conan, for the record, that is the intention. We'll have to find a payroll company, just like we'll have to work with the utility companies to get them onboarded. But we expect in both scenarios there'd be a fair amount of demand, both from the supplier side and the user side.
Oh, that's the impressive part of this system. Thanks.
Member Merritt, for the record, congratulations on the process. As a banker, I see this as a step forward for our businesses.
Thank you.
Any other board members wish to weigh in? If no one else wishes, other board member wishes to weigh in. Thank you very much for the presentation, Chair Douglas. For the record, we'll move our agenda. This was some discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Have a great day. Thank you.
This moves us to the item number 5. Chair Douglas, for the record, consideration proposed settlement agreement to resolve disciplinary actions. Our first one up would be Cannabis Compliance Board versus MA and Associates LLC, case number 2021-48 for possible action.
L. Christopher Rath, Senior Deputy Attorney General, for the record. Good morning, Chair, members of the board. I will be presenting the first settlement agreement under agenda item 5A. And once the board has considered that, our other Senior Deputy Attorney General, Ms. Emily Borderlove, will be presenting the second settlement agreement under agenda item 5B. With that, moving on to agenda item 5A, this is the case of CCB versus MA and Associates, CCB case number 2021-48. This case arises from a disciplinary complaint that was filed and served on November 9, 2021 against respondent, which is a cannabis independent testing laboratory. Respondent filed its answer and request for a hearing on December 21, 2021. A hearing officer was assigned and the parties proceeded with a disciplinary process. The allegations in the complaint include a failure to provide certificates of analysis to the CCB at the same time as the lab's clients as required by regulation. Also providing false statements to the board regarding aliquot weights and failing to report proficiency testing results. In addition, also failing to maintain quality assurance programs. From the start, respondent through its counsel did seek to resolve the violations set forth in the complaint via a settlement agreement, and the parties did begin settlement negotiations early on. Negotiations were extended and somewhat complicated by the fact that CCB staff conducted another investigation after the answer was filed on December 28, 2021, which found some additional violations, including issues with accreditation for all required analytes, and that issue's been since resolved. And there was also a finding of a failure to perform full compliance testing for multiple production runs of the cannabis-infused drinks. All those issues are set forth in the settlement agreement. The parties agreed to include resolution of the violations found during the December investigation of 2021 with resolution of the allegations in the complaint and combine those for efficiency's sake so that those outstanding issues could be resolved at one time. And after ongoing negotiations, the parties came to the resolution you see embodied in the settlement agreement. As set forth in the proposed settlement agreement to resolve the issues in the complaint, as well as from the December 2021 investigation, respondent admitted to one category 1 violation for making an intentionally false statement to the board, one category 2 violation for unintentionally destroying or concealing evidence, a second category 2 violation for failing to conduct all required testing for a cannabis product, and a category 3 violation for failing to maintain quality assurance and quality control programs in a laboratory. Respondent also agreed to pay civil penalties in the total amount of $300,000 with an option for paying this over time with a payment plan option detailed in the settlement agreement. The details of the payment plan option are all set forth in the settlement agreement. I would note this is a longer payment plan than usual, and it is longer than you've seen in any other settlement agreements. There are several reasons for this. This was a significantly higher civil penalty than you've seen in almost all the other cases. I think there was only one other case with a higher civil penalty that was resolved. Respondent's counsel also represented that the licensee was had some financial issues and would probably not be able to make payments of such a large amount over a shorter time frame. Counsel for respondent did send over some financial spreadsheets, which we reviewed and appeared to confirm that. Should those conditions change, the settlement agreement does give the respondent the option to prepay any installments without penalty. So we may get it in before that 18 months expired. Respondent also provided a plan of correction, which is summarized in paragraph 21 of the settlement agreement. The plan of correction generally includes multiple updates and refinements to key policies and procedures, including the documentation of aliquot weights, instrument software updates, employee training and supervision, and quality assurance and quality control. Respondent has also hired a dedicated quality assurance, quality control compliance director who now oversees the lab's quality assurance and quality control programs. Based on this, the Attorney General recommends and requests the CCB approve this settlement agreement. I'm available for any questions, as is counsel for the respondent, Mr. Derek Connor.
At this time, Chair Douglas, at this time, we'd like to hear from the respondents.
Good morning, Chair Douglas, members of the board, Director Cannabis and staff. Derek Connor, for the record, on behalf of the respondent, MA and Associates. Also with me is my much better half, Miss Amanda Connor.
Good morning.
We are prepared to request the settlement be approved today. I believe we also have Mr. Steve Basilo, who represents the company, appearing via Zoom, and we are also prepared to answer any questions the board may have for the respondent.
For the record, Chair Douglas, board members, anyone wish to have questions to either?
Mr. Chairman, this is Board Member Nylander. Good morning, Connors. The question I have, and I don't know if it's more for the company, but within paragraph 21 of the settlement, and Mr. Rath mentioned this, one of the corrective plans was to hire a full-time dedicated compliance officer. And you know, it's one thing to have a plan in place, but it's another to make sure you comply with the compliance plan. So did that individual come from within the company, or was it an independent hire?
Amanda Connor, for the record, the compliance director, quality assurance, pardon me on his title, it's quite long, came from outside the company, was an external hire to come in. And it's not mentioned in paragraph 21, but they also did retain our law firm for compliance work to work with that compliance director who is in house now.
Okay, thank you for that. And do you know, did he have prior cannabis experience?
Amanda Connor, for the record, I apologize. I don't remember exactly, and Mr. Baslow may be able to confirm, but my understanding is he did not have prior cannabis experience, but he had other compliance laboratory experience.
Understood. Thank you.
I have a comment. I think the fine would, oh, Member Dret, thank you, Member Dret. The fine sounds astronomical, but when you look at that it's a lab and the labs hold themselves out and they're supposed to be the safeguard of the public, it makes more sense. It's like, you know, your only job is to not lie about results, like that's the job. So I think that makes the fine make more sense. Is that what your client's also thinking?
I would agree that the fine, Derek Connor, for the record, the fine is very high. I don't think our client would comment one way or the other as to whether or not they think that that is fair. You know, it is a small company. You know, one of the things the board is supposed to look at is the size of a company when they're considering these fines, and this is a large fine. They have financial difficulties. You know, something that doesn't appear on here along with the fine is they had substantial time and effort fees that are also billed, and those are due like immediately. You have 30 days to pay those. They also suffered a loss of their business. You know, part of the reputation was hit as a result of this. So I think while the fine is high, you know, the board should consider that there are other penalties that are really, you know, this company has gone through as a part of this program. They've also taken a lot of steps in my mind to improve and to make sure that these things don't happen again. But I do share your sentiments on the labs being a public safety concern, and the arbiter is supposed to make sure that the products that are reaching our client or our customers rather are safe and what they say they are.
Other board members with comments? For the record, Chair Douglas, and my comments, I appreciate you representing your client. From my standpoint, there are rules in place. This is a settlement agreement, but your client, for business reasons, has agreed to enter a stipulated settlement of this matter. Their obligation is to follow the rules. I understand what you just said, but they are to follow the law, not do what they wish to do. I will never support anything that's over a 12-month payment plan. I realize they can pay it up front. The fact that the amount is large, that's one thing. The opposite is they could have lost their license totally in this business. That's a more draconian step. And that's not what the board is asking for. Mistakes do happen. But yes, we do consider hardships on people, but the hardship is not having a license. So please understand that. Because when you violate, and we have to look at public safety and public concerns in this matter. That's my comment for the record. I'll make a motion for acceptance of the settlement agreement with the payment plan in place. I know for the record, I will not support in the future anything that goes over a year. That would be my motion.
Mr. Chairman, this is Member Nylander. I would second that motion.
We have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any additional discussion or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion's accepted. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair Douglas, members of the board, and as always, thank you, Mr. Rath, and all your staff for working on this. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you. That moves us to item B under 5, Cannabis Compliance Board versus Damian Jamal Ness, case number 2022-60 for possible action.
For the record, Emily Bordelove, Senior Deputy Attorney General. Thank you. Chair, members of the board, good morning. The second settlement agreement on the agenda is for CCB versus Damian Ness, case number 2022-60. The complaint in this case was filed and served on March 7th, 2022. After receiving a copy of the complaint, Mr. Ness reached out to the CCB. He acknowledged and did not contest the revocation of his agent card, but disputed the civil penalty amount outlined in the complaint as excessive. Given his representations, counsel for the CCB from the Attorney General's office discussed the settlement terms with him as outlined in the settlement agreement for you. Mr. Ness has not hired counsel to represent him and is representing himself pro se in this matter. Parties agreed to resolve the matter that was mutually agreeable to Mr. Ness, the CCB staff, and the Attorney General's office. The offense at issue in the complaint occurred at the Essence Tropicana dispensary. Mr. Ness was previously employed in their drive-thru. In late April 2021, Essence Tropicana reported to the CCB a person under 21 years of age had attempted to purchase cannabis inside its dispensary. So it undertook a further investigation and uncovered 3 prior instances of the same person successfully purchasing cannabis through its drive-thru. One of these instances was Mr. Ness's sale of cannabis that occurred on or about April 9th, 2022, as outlined in the complaint. The underage person was 20 years, 10 months, and 14 days old. Of note, the CCB settled with Essence Tropicana separately regarding the underage sales as memorialized in the settlement agreement in case number 2021-50. As set forth in the post-settlement agreement to resolve this matter, Mr. Ness is admitting to 1 Category 2 violation for failing to verify the underage person's age and allowing an underage person to purchase cannabis. Mr. Ness has agreed to the revocation of his agent card for a 4-year period from the date the CCB approves the stipulation in order and agrees to pay the civil penalty of $2,500 within the 4-year revocation period. If Mr. Ness does not pay civil penalty of $2,500 within the 4-year revocation period, then his registration card will be revoked for 9 years and 11 months in consideration of submitted violation. At the end of the 4-year or 9-year and 11-month revocation period, whichever is applicable, Mr. Ness may request reinstatement of his cannabis establishment agent card from the CCB. Considering the facts of this case and Mr. Ness's eagerness to expeditiously resolve this matter and accept the consequences, the Attorney General recommends and requests that the CCB approve the settlement agreement. I'm available for any questions, as is Mr. Ness, who's appearing in person on his own behalf.
Good morning, Chair Doug. Good morning, Chair Douglas and board members.
State your name for the record.
My name is Damian Ness for the record.
Any statement you wish to make, sir?
No, sir, but I'm open for questions.
And as to this, as was outlined by our Attorney General, you voluntarily entered into this settlement agreement whereby your card would be suspended, giving you a 4-year period to pay a fine of $2,500. If it's not paid, instead of being suspended for 4 years, it would go to 9 years and 11 months. You understand that, sir?
That is correct.
That being the case, any statements you wish to make to the board, or?
No, sir, I accept what I did, regardless of what happened, something wrong happened, so I take acceptance of that.
Thank you very much, sir. Do we have a motion for approval of the settlement?
Mr. Chairman, this is Board Member Nylander. I would move for approval of a settlement agreement in item 5B as stated on the agenda.
We have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Member Merritt, I second.
Moved and seconded. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the settlement agreement, please say aye.
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 This matter carries unanimously. Sir, good luck, and hopefully you can get this done so you can have the opportunity to get back in the industry.
Chairman, board, thank you. Ms. Emily, thank you as well.
That moves us to item number 6, request for transfers of interest. The first item up is Greenway Health Community.
Good morning, Chair Douglas, members of the board. For the record, I am David Staley, Division Chief of Investigations for the CCB. I'm here to present agenda item number 6, which consists of 4 transfer of interest or TOI applications. Item A is a TOI application for Greenway Health Community LLC or Greenway. TOI number 19054 requests a withdrawal for a proposed transaction that was originally filed on July 1st of 2019. Due to the extended review period, the proposed transaction was terminated, and on July 10th, 2020, Greenway requested a withdrawal. Staff identified areas of concern with TOI 19054 because Greenway Health filed late or incomplete tax returns with the Nevada Department of Taxation 17 times during the last 3 years, although none of the late filings included late payments. CCB staff have provided potential options for the board's consideration to proceed with TOI 19054. I'm available for any questions, and my understanding is that Michelle Norgard and Daniel Caravet are available to address any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair Douglas, I'll turn this item back to you.
Thank you. On behalf of Greenway, do we have? Thank you.
Morning, Your Honor, members of the board. My name is Daniel Caravet. I'm the owner of Greenway Health Community. This to my right, Ms. Michelle Norgard is our Director of Operations. And what I'm here today is to ask for your blessing on the closure for TOI 19054.
Members of the board, questions? Hearing no questions, as I indicated earlier, for the record, I will support the withdrawal of this request for the TOI. That part seems to be a routine matter, and sorry that you got caught up in the delay of TOI processing. However, as to the other issue, taxes, even though you are presently current, I would still wish to refer this matter to our Attorney General to at least review it, see whether or not anything else should take place, or whether or not they would recommend to the board that we not take any further actions because of late filings. That would be my motion.
Mr. Chairman, this is Member Nylander. I would second the motion. I was assuming you want it to be without prejudice.
Yes.
Okay, that would be my second.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Member Durrett is not available at this time. She would abstain as to this vote, but the motion does carry. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That moves us to item B, Inyo Fine Cannabis Dispensary LLC. For possible action, we have a number of TOI numbers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, David Staley, Chief of Investigations. Item B is the TOI application for Inyo Fine Cannabis Dispensary LLC, or Inyo. TOI number 21066 was filed by Inyo requesting approval for the transfer of Frank Reed's 5% ownership into the Reed Family Trust with his wife, Marilyn Reed, acting as trustee after Mr. Reed's death on September 15th of 2021. Staff identified an area of concern with TOI 21066 because Inyo was 6 months delinquent in paying its commerce tax bill for the year ended June 2021. CCB staff have provided potential options for the board's consideration to proceed with TOI number 21066. I am available for any questions, and my understanding is that Chris Olson, David Goldwater, and Marilyn Reed are available to address any questions that you may have as well. With that, Chair Douglas, I'll turn this item back to you.
Thank you. On behalf of Inyo,
Chairman Douglas, Director Climas, David Goldwater, partner at Inyo Fine Cannabis Dispensary. We respectfully request your approval of this item. As for the commerce tax issue of the late filing, I have to take full responsibility for that. That was a clerical error. Inyo has been timely with all our tax filings on sales, excise, and every other payroll tax, and paid millions of dollars in taxes. The commerce tax was a confusion between my accountant and myself, and we have since paid it. It was only a couple of $1,000 item relative to what we paid. I beg your forgiveness for that, and it will not happen in the future.
thank you. Questions by the,
Mr. Chairman, this is Member Nylander. Good morning, Mr. Goldwater.
Good morning, Mr. Nylander.
Is the if the transfer goes through, will the trust be active at all, or just as a passive investor?
The trust will no longer, or Miss Reed, who is here with me today, will continue to be, we will ask her to be a member of our board of directors, and we value her input, and she has a great deal of business experience in Southern Nevada, so we're lucky to have her.
Very good. Thank you.
I think I don't want anybody to cry. This was your father, right, Chris?
No, this is Mr. Reed.
This is
Her
Chris
husband.
Olson.
Okay.
He
I know
passed
you're-
away. My dad passed away at the same time, so.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm sorry about your loss.
any other board members to weigh in with any questions?
Again, Mr. Chairman, Member Nylander, Mr. Goldwater, the failure to pay the taxes in this situation appears to be an isolated incident. I guess as you've testified, it's a mistake between your accountant and you, where you each thought the other one was taking care of this. And I know it was a new tax and others also failed to pay it on time, but have there been any other late or failure to file situations for the company?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, David Goldwater to Member Nylander. And no, we have always paid our sales on time, our excise tax on time and accurately. We have been diligent with our payroll tax filings, our income tax filings. We have the timely and accurate filing of all our taxes, except for this one where this was a new tax. There was actually some confusion as to whether or not you needed to file a return, but that situation I take full responsibility for. And as I said, it will not happen in the future.
Thank you. I didn't have any further questions.
That being the case, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of transfer of interest number 6B as stated on the agenda. And I don't think there's any need for the board to refer this anywhere further. I think it's, it's pretty straightforward. I think that was an isolated incident, but I do think we need to probably condition the approval that the trustee file a new TOI application in the event that Marilyn Reed is replaced as the trustee of the F&M Reed Family Trust that's dated September of 2016. And that would just be a request to make sure we have a trustee on file in the event there's a change of the person occupying that position.
We have a motion for approval. Second to that motion.
Member Drat, I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any nays? Matter carries unanimously.
Thank you for your consideration, Chair.
That moves us to item C, CLS Holding USA, Inc.
Chair Douglas, members of the board, this is David Staley, Chief of Investigations for the record. Item C is a TOI application for CLS Holdings USA, Inc., or CLS. TOIs number 19080, 19082, and 19083 request approval for an internal reorganization that was originally approved by the Nevada Department of Taxation on December 12, 2018, but which neglected to record the presence of an intermediary company in that organizational structure. An early suitability review for a lounge license was completed in conjunction with the investigation for TOIs 19080, 19082, and 19083. The investigative report concluded that CLS is not only suitable for the requested TOIs, but is also suitable for a potential lounge license. The early review did not include specifics related to the operation and location of this proposed lounge, which will still need to be investigated by CCB audit and inspections after the lounge application period, along with a brief update from CCB investigations. In addition, CLS has requested waivers pursuant to NCCR 5.112 and 5.125 of the requirements of NCCR 5.110 regarding a review of owners related to transfers of under 5%. CLS has adequately addressed the items required in NCCR 5.125 to allow the board to approve such waivers. Staff suggests that if approved, the board limit CLS's 5.112 and 5.125 waiver to expire on such agenda date as its next TOI application is heard. Staff did identify areas of concern with TOIs 19080, 19082, and 19083 because CLS licensed subsidiaries have filed late or incomplete tax returns with the Nevada Department of Taxation 9 times during the last 3 years. CCB staff have provided potential options for the board's consideration to proceed with this TOI. I'm available for any questions, and my understanding is that Jeffrey Binder and Amanda Connor are present today to address any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair Douglas, I'll turn this item back to you.
For the record, do we know that All tax filings are presently up to date and have been paid.
David Staley, for the record, yes, Chair Douglas, our understanding from taxation is that the company is current at this time.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Amanda Connor, for the record. I also have with me my better half, Derek Connor, and via Zoom is Jeffrey Binder, representative of the company. We kindly, on behalf of CLS, as Mr. Staley indicated, this is what I would refer to as a cleanup transfer. It was correcting an issue with the transfer process by the Department of Taxation in 2018 to add an intermediary entity in the structure. And we request approval of this transfer of interest and the waivers 5.125 and 5.112. The company agrees to the condition that it is good until the next transfer is approved. With regards to the tax returns, the company has provided a written response, which I believe the board has. For several of the tax filings, they were able to provide proof that they were timely filed and paid, or that the tax returns were not in fact required because they made under the requisite amount requiring a filing for the commerce tax. With regards to I believe it is 5 returns. They did admit to late filing or paying them, but they were quite a while ago and have corrected those with training and other tracking mechanisms for filing. And their current tax status shows that those measures are working. So we kindly request approval of the transfer and the waivers. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions by members of the board?
Mr. Chairman, this is Member Nylander. Ms. Connor, I just want to make sure I understand the structure properly. This Alternative Solutions LLC is an intermediary company that sits above the 3 licensees. And in the previous reorg, it was either not reflected or it was shown as an entity, not an intermediary company.
Amanda Connor, for the record. That is correct, that it is an intermediary entity now, and it was not reflected in the prior transfer. My understanding is that the previous ownership before my client acquired it did not reflect Alternative Solutions in the ownership structure correctly. And so when the transfer was processed, it was left out. But my client had acquired the interest through Alternative Solutions, so Alternative Solutions should have been reflected.
Understood. So it's really just an error in how they submitted the application, probably.
I believe so, although I can't comment on that.
Thank you.
Other board members? If nothing additional, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Member Nylander. I would move for approval of agenda item number 6C as read into the record. And we would need a condition that the Regulation 5 waivers are conditioned to expire on the agenda date when the next TOI application is heard.
This is Member Merritt. I was second.
We have a motion. We have a second now. Any additional discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 We have no nays. The matter carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you to Mr. Staley and his staff for all their work.
Chair Douglas, Chief Staley, for the record, do you have any direction for staff regarding the delinquent payments?
We are going to just approve it as is.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That moves us to the D item, Greenleaf Enterprises, Inc.
Chair Douglas, members of the board, for the record, I'm David Staley, Chief of Investigations. Item number D is the TOI application for Greenleaf Enterprises, Greenleaf Production, and Greenleaf Wellness, or combined Greenleaf. TOIs number 21021 and 22000008 through 22000015 were filed by Greenleaf requesting approval for the distribution of 3% of aggregate shares from 7 existing shareholders to master grower Mark Ziegler under the terms of his employment agreement. If the proposed transfers are approved, Ziegler will increase his ownership from 2% to 5% of each of the 3 individual entities, and the 7 other shareholders' ownership will drop by somewhere between 0.15% to 1%. Staff identified areas of concern with these TOIs because Greenleaf filed later incomplete tax returns with the Nevada Department of Taxation 21 times during the last 3 years across the 3 of the Greenleaf affiliated subsidiaries. One payment was underpaid by approximately $3,000, but paid in full once the mistake was found. CCB staff have provided potential options for the board's consideration to proceed with these TOIs. I am available for any questions, and my understanding is that Mark Ziegler and Katie Hoffman are available to address any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair Douglas, I will turn this item back to you.
Thank you. Do we have representatives on behalf of Greenleaf Enterprises?
Yes, good morning, Chair Douglas, board members, CCB staff. This is Katie Hoffman of the law firm Fenimore Craig, appearing on behalf of Greenleaf Enterprises, Greenleaf Production, and Greenleaf Wellness. The Greenleaf entities would like to thank Chief Staley and his staff, Angela Dean and Rachel Branner, for their efforts in processing the application. As Mr. Staley mentioned, these TOIs request approval to increase Mark Ziegler's ownership stake in each entity from his current 2% to 5%. These TOIs are the final sets of ownership interests Mr. Ziegler earned in each entity under an independent contractor agreement he signed with each entity in 2017. We appreciate the CCB's consideration of this request, and we are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Do you wish to make, Chair Douglas, for the record, do you wish to make any statement as to the issue of tax?
Yes, even before Greenleaf began working with the CCBs on the TOIs, those considerations were of concern to Greenleaf, and beginning last summer, they made a significant investment in transitioning from their current in-house accounting team to a professional CPA firm. They have hired that firm to act as essentially their CFO, and Mr. Todd Sandeman has been named as treasurer of each entity. They provide professional accounting services and were brought on board to really ensure that all of Greenleaf's financial systems are running smoothly, and that these errors, which essentially resulted from just an overworked and under-resourced staff, to ensure that those types of mistakes don't happen.
Thank you. Questions by other board members? Hearing none at this time, I would make a motion for approval of the TOI request at this time. Also, I would request that we refer this matter to staff to look at the tax issue and determine some appropriate resolution for the board. My motion.
This is Board Member Nylander. I would second that motion.
Any additional comments? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next is item number 7, request for consideration of approval of management service agreements. We have 3 items concerning the same entity, but with different parties. So staff could enlighten us.
Chair Douglas, members of the board, again, this is, for the record, this is David Staley, Chief of Investigations. I'm here to present agenda item number 7, which consists of a request for approvals of management services agreement between Helios Nevada LLC, Grow Well Group LLC, the Lightwater Group LLC, and the Higher Source LLC. You'll note while the management agreements are all with Helios, since there are 3 individual and distinct management agreements, we've broken this item into agenda item number 7A, B, and C, so my description covers all three. CCB staff have reviewed the agreements and found them appropriate. I'm available for any questions, and my understanding is that Larry Birch, Tracy Osteen, Orlando Padilla, Georgina Miller, and Alyssa Gorham are present today to address any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair Douglas, I'll turn this item back to you.
Thank you. Parties on behalf of this agreement.
Good morning. My name
Please
is
come forward.
Orlando with Crowell Group.
And
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. Can you speak up, please?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Orlando. Yeah, I represent the Crowell.
And my name is Georgina Miller with the Lightwater Group.
If you could come forward, the microphone.
My name is Larry Birch. I'm the receiver.
And for the record, this is Alyssa Gorham with the Higher Source and my business partner, Lisa Apodaca.
Thank you. As a receiver, you wish to say anything?
We found many problems, and so we've been making corrections to step forward. I have met with the investors, and we have decided to make changes in management. And I interviewed with the new management, and they're all talented in their areas. So we are working with the budget now and setting our steps forward. We had a few surprises, like $6 million of accounts payable that were not recorded. So we're trying to get financial statements that have some credibility so we can move forward and accomplish our goals. Are there any questions?
Board members, do you have any questions of the receiver? We did receive a statement from the owner, Kiara Sears. With the other group, other folks that have weighed in, does anyone else wish to address the board?
Yes, Chairman. My name is Ed Humphrey, and I represent 800 Still Partners LLC.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. Can you repeat that, please?
Yes. Is that any better? Doesn't sound broken up side, so it's hard to tell.
It's okay, as long as you're close to the microphone.
Yes, Ed Humphrey. I represent 800 Stillwell Partners LLC, the land. We are currently 2 months down rent and have not received, in our belief, adequate communication from the receiver on what the plan is. We have not received a single rent check from the receiver since this receivership started. We do have questions with the management group that has been put in place, mostly in connection with their former equity position. So it really, I think, is Growwell Group that we're interested in. The management fees in total seem to be approaching $30,000 a month, and we don't have rent paid. We do not think that it's appropriate to pay equity members while rent is not paid. So we would urge the receiver to open up the lines of communication.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to weigh in? Our board members have any questions they wish to present? No additional questions? Any additional comments from the receiver as to the proposal?
No, we're trying as hard as we can. We're going to get over this hump and make it successful.
Understand. I'd make a motion to approve the management agreements In this case, we note for the record that the board does receive, or cannabis licensing authority receives reports from a receiver as to what's going on. And outside parties are free to voice their concerns if there are any to the appropriate parties in this case. But at this time, my motion is to support the approval of the management agreements. Service agreements. Do we
Mr.
have a
Chairman,
second?
this is Member Nylander. I would second that motion.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? All in favor as to the three management service agreements, please say aye.
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 Matter carries.
Thank you.
unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8, consideration for approval to extend the February 5, 2022 final inspection deadline. This is as to International Services and Rebuilding, Inc.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Steve Gilbert, Chief of Administration for the record. I'm here today to present agenda item number 8, which consists of a petition submitted by International Service and Rebuilding, Inc., or ISR, to extend the February 5th, 2022 deadline to receive a final inspection by the CCB. ISR was issued a conditional medical cultivation and production license C211 and P141 on April 11th, 2018, within the city of Fernley jurisdiction in Lyon County. On January 13th, 2022, ISR submitted a letter to the CCB requesting an extension of the February 5th, 2022 deadline. It did not request a specific amount of time in its request. In its request, management reported that the delays included issues related to COVID, pandemic, and remote working conditions. At CCB staff request on March 2nd, 2022, ISR submitted a list of completed actions within the city of Fernley, as well as with Lyon County officials. ISR detailed actions completed with the city of Fernley from July 10th, 2018 through July 13th, 2020, and mentions having 5 roundtable meetings with the city of Fernley's building department during that period. A change of location request was submitted in September of 2020 to relocate from the city of Fernley jurisdiction to Dayton in the Lyon County jurisdiction. This request was denied on August 20th, 2021, pursuant to NRS 678-500. ISR remains in contact with the city planner in Fernley. As of March 2nd, 2022, ISR management reports it is looking to secure a site with a building already in place, which will comply with state and local regulations, and as appointments to view properties in the city of Fernley's industrial sector. ISR is also continuing to pursue whether it can relocate to the Lyon County jurisdiction. Staff has communicated to ISR that there are no areas of concerns and has asked that the licensee be prepared to discuss its progress at the board meeting. I'm available for any questions, and my understanding is that Thomas Combs is present today to give a brief presentation and address any questions you may have as well.
Good morning, Chairman Douglas, board members, and other CCB staff. I'm Ardea Canapa-Rotoli of the law firm Maddox Segre in Canapa. We're here on behalf.
Can you spell that, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ardea, Ardea, last name Canapa-Rotoli, C-A-N is in Nancy, E, P is in Paul, A, hyphen R-O-T-O-L-I. We're here on behalf of International Service and Building, Inc., which we refer to as ISR here today. I also have with me my law partner, Eva Segerblum, and here with us today is Thomas Combs, who is the owner of ISR. We're here to answer any questions. Mr. Gilbert has really covered well the history of what's gone on with the license and ISR's diligence in trying to get up and running. There have been a number of issues. As mentioned, ISR received provisional licensing in April of 2018, worked diligently, first about one building, and then City of Fernley actually changed the zoning to industrial M1. And then ISR was actually had to purchase a whole nother location, 4.3 acres of M1 zoning in June of 2018. After working with over a year and a half with the City of Fernley Planning Department, and as mentioned, multiple planning meetings and continual new issues being raised, it was just decided that it was not looking like the City of Fernley was going to give the final sign off on this location. In hopes of trying to look at a different location in Lyon County, there were efforts made to work with the Lyon County City Planning Department, or with the Dayton City Planning Department, to try to get a new location. And as mentioned, there's been some requests submitted with the CCB to hopefully be able to get a transfer to Lyon County and Dayton. But we are, because we know that that was denied and there's reconsideration been submitted, Mr. Combs is diligently still working with the City of Fernley and looking for a new location. There are, fortunately, new people involved with the City of Fernley who are much more diligent, hoping to cooperate with MME facilities, and has been much more willing to work with Mr. Combs in trying to get up and running. I know in the formal submission, there was no request for a specific time, but we would ask that a 12-month extension be granted to be able to give Mr. Combs the ability to either get this new facility up and running and going in the City of Fernley, and also to potentially continue to pursue the reconsideration of being able to transfer the license to Dayton in Lyon County. We're here and happy to answer any questions that you may have. Appreciate consideration.
Chair Douglas, for the record, in light of what's been presented to us, it kind of, your information dealt with my question about the possibility of getting something up and running. That's kind of a shot in the dark at this point, so to speak. That being the case, before I throw out a motion, I want to see if any other board member has any questions or concerns they wish to have answered or clarified for the record.
Member Drett, for the record, yeah, I think he made the best decision of his life retaining counsel, because based on what he'd done on his own, I was ready to not approve it. Might have been the only one, but it doesn't seem like he's going to be able to go forward with the amount of effort it takes to be in this industry, and not being able to find a location for the last few years. That's something, there either is a location or there isn't, and I think he should have found one, but because he got counsel to explain it so well and explain it better than he had, and hopefully he will work with them going forward to make sure he's doing everything that's necessary in such a difficult industry, I would be inclined to give him that one-time extension.
Any other board members wish to weigh in?
Mr. Chairman, as Board Member Nylander, I'm also inclined to grant the extension and give them another chance. Seems like they're at least getting better organized. And I guess it'd be a 12-month extension is how we've handled the prior ones.
That would, for the record, would be my motion to grant the extension, and we would grant it to February of 23, as we have done with the other similarly situated matters we've had. That would be the motion, to give them an extension until the February 23 period, to make it a little easier for staff to monitor.
I would second I'm sorry, Brianna, go ahead.
Member Drett, I would second and comment that everyone hates attorneys, but once in a while we can really help.
With that and without a disclaimer, all in favor by the board?
Aye.
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 Matter carries unanimously for an extension.
Member Durrett, is your comment limited to expire also on the date the items are?
No, it's in perpetuity.
Thank you all very much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Item number 10, well, 9, excuse me, approval of resolutions, notice of final licensure. This is Deep Roots Harvest Inc. and H8 Sub 1.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. Steve Gilbert for the record. Agenda 9A is an informational item presented as a notice to the board of establishments that have been issued their final license since the last board meeting. We have 2 licenses to note today. Agenda 9A1. On December 6, 2018, Deep Roots Inc., RD 397, was issued a conditional license for an adult use retail store in the city of Las Vegas jurisdiction. On March 30th, 2022, the Cannabis Compliance Board conducted a pre-opening inspection and an audit of the facility located at 5991 West Cheyenne Avenue, Las Vegas, Nevada. The inspection and audit results revealed the facility was in compliance with NCCR and Title 56 of NRS. A statement of no deficiencies was issued on March 30th, 2022, and as a result, the CCB approved and issued a final license to Deep Roots Inc. on April 12th, 2022. Agenda 9A2 on December 5th, 2018, Helping Hands Wellness Center Inc., RD 548, was issued a conditional license for an adult use retail store in the city of Las Vegas jurisdiction. At the May 25th, 2021 Cannabis Compliance Board meeting, the transfer of interest request number 21050 submitted by Helping Hands Wellness Center Inc. was approved, transferring conditional license RD 548 to HH Sub 1 LLC. On February 7th, 2022, the Cannabis Compliance Board conducted a pre-opening inspection and audit of the facility located at 1437 North Jones Boulevard, Las Vegas. The inspection and audit results revealed the facility was in compliance with NCCR and Title 56 of the NRS. And a statement of no deficiencies was issued on February 28th, 2022. And as a result, the CCB approved and issued a final license to HH Sub 1 Inc. on April 1st, 2022. With that, Chair, members of the board, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? If we have questions, we can agenda these. We're on for discussion. That takes us to item number 10, petition filed pursuant to NRS 678A 461D as to High Sierra Holistic LLC petition to amend NCCR 5 for possible action. Do we have our presenter on this?
And good morning, Chairman, and good morning to the board. My name is Mike Bedmer. I'm a Senior Deputy Attorney General with the Attorney General's Office, and I have the pleasure of introducing item number 10 on today's agenda. Agenda item 10 concerns a petition filed by High Sierra Holistics pursuant to NRS 678A.460 and NCCR 4.145 for the adoption of a regulation to the NCCR. This proposed regulation, which while it references LCB file number R092-17A, it is seemingly intended to reenact the repealed regulation of NAC 453D.265, which arose from that same file number. As to the language of the proposed regulation, in summary, it would require the board to open a application round upon the request and application of an existing medical cannabis license holder, provided that it is of the same type at the same location and is located within a jurisdiction wherein a moratorium had been lifted. However, that is just a summary of the terms of the regulation. The specific text is provided within the petition itself. It's my understanding that the representative from High Sierra that signed the petition would be present today to answer any questions the board may have. However, I do not see her in the room. If we may inquire with the on Zoom if she is present. Oh, I see her. And with that, I would submit back to the board, but I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Chair
Good
Douglas, for the
morning.
record,
This
you
is,
did,
Good morning, it's
before we
Ashley
go,
Ernst and Russell Ernst with High Sierra Holistics. We're up Carson.
before we go any further on this, in your legal review of this request, uh, there were some concerns raised as to provide the board with sufficient information as to being able to go forward with this matter, studies of need. Additionally, there was a concern raised by you as to uh, the statutes that enable the one-for-one transfers in the past to take place in the future, that they are no longer on the books. That was at least my understanding of the memorandum. Is that correct?
And good morning. Mike Detmer for the record. That is correct, Chair. That is a app summary of the analysis.
With that, we have the presenter of this request. I'd like to hear from them and if they wish to make any comment as to those two issues.
Good morning, Ashley Ernst for High Sierra Holistics. We are asking for the one-to-one for the medical production and cultivation facility that is in Lyon County. There is no longer a moratorium in Lyon County. We have the location for the project that we are wanting to go forward with. I guess our request right now is to ask that it be from medical, just the one for recreational. So we are able to go forward with this, as we know the recreational license is much more important and more, I guess not useful, but it's much broader for the state.
One of the big things is to put up this facility is going to cost a lot of money. And without a recreational license available, it would be hard for us to complete this project unless we have tools.
Do you wish to respond at all in terms of the requirements for these types of petitions? Is that you've done some studies to make us aware of whether there is a present need for this type of requested change, number one. And then number two, as I indicated, had been provided to us from the Attorney General's office, that the underlying authority to do the one-for-ones was no longer in effect. Do you have any comment as to that?
When we originally applied for the license, we had been told until we were going for the moratorium had been lifted, or until we were going for the final licensure, that we would be able to transfer it for the one-to-one was our understanding. So we're unaware that now that it is under the Cannabis Board, that was how brought forward. We would like to open the license to give so we have more tax revenue for the county, because we have spoken with them, which they will be directly affected by it as well as hopefully more state tax for you guys as well.
Other board members wish to weigh in with any questions for proponent or the Deputy Attorney General?
Chair, go ahead.
This is Member Young. Until just a few moments ago, I didn't realize I might have a disclosure in this. I have a doctor-patient relationship with at least one member of High Sierra Holistics, who I was not aware until just moments ago. I don't think this would impact my ability to make a decision regarding this, but I just wanted to disclose this information.
Thank you for that disclosure.
Member Durrett, for the record, this license is still conditional, right? The underlying medical license is conditional, right? Because we granted an extension for them to finalize this license, isn't that right? No, so they have their final medical license?
No, we're still conditional. We want to make sure, we wanted to see if we would be able to get the recreational before finishing the project, as it is going to cost between $8 to $10 million to finish it. So we wanted to make sure that before we put
all of the money into it, that we would have the chance to make a recreational license as well.
So even if this was adopted, which I don't think this language, I think this language has problems. Even if it was adopted, you may not even qualify under this language. Is that right? Because you don't have your final medical license and you may not get your final medical license.
We don't have our final medical license, but from our understanding, when they originally did this, any of the ones that weren't in the moratorium that were still in the not when still in the conditional licenses were granted their recreational licenses as well.
I also just wanted to add that I was under the impression when these regulations were passed and there were allowances of the one-to-one. I don't think there was an idea that these would be the only windows. I just think this language is the wrong way to go about it.
Other board members wish to weigh in at this time?
Mr. Chairman, this is Member Nylander. I have just a quick question for the Attorney General. If I'm reading this correctly, the statutes that gave rise to the one-for-one ability have been repealed by the legislature. Is that correct?
Mike Demmer for the record. So the regulation that has been repealed, the NAC 453D.265, which is essentially the one-for-one license regulation. Its enabling statutes was NRS 453D.200 and .210. Both of those statutes have been repealed. 210, it had timeframes for which these licenses could be applied for and received. And again, but as Member Nylander states, those statutes have been repealed.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, if we could ask the petitioner if they're aware of that the underlying statutory authority doesn't exist now.
We're unaware that they have been removed. I know we're no longer under the Department of Taxation. So I guess our next question would be, how would we, is there a way to go from getting the one-to-one or granting the recreational license, or is there another way to open application period?
Mike Demmer for the record, I apologize for the interruption. I should qualify that many of the provisions of those two statutes that have been repealed have been carried over to NRS 678 A through D in certain portions. But the parts that specifically reference the one-for-one licenses, those have been.
May I jump in? Because I think I have some clarification. Member Drett, for the record, I believe they were repealed because when AB 533 was adopted, those provisions, those open application periods had already occurred. So there was no reason to adopt them into the new regulatory scheme or statutory scheme. So it's not like there was an intention of the legislature to say, no, we're not going to do any more one-to-one application periods. And I don't think anybody intentionally thought there will never be an application period for these medical licenses to get an adult use license, but there is the board does have the authority to open application periods. And as our AG has expressed, that would come after a market study is conducted. And there's probably other precursors to occur. So there is the ability to do it. It's just not, there's not a specific, it's not the regulations that have been cited by the petitioner.
Any other board member wish to make a comment? Mr. Oskow, you were kind of working your way forward. Do you wish to weigh in?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members, Director Calamus, staff. John Oseguera representing the Source, Thrive, GTI, and Curaleaf in this instance. As it was presented, we were not necessarily opposed to a narrow petition. However, as AG Detmer gave his analysis, it gave us more pause. We potentially would be opposed in that case, but we would like to seek clarification that this would be limited to, dual license applicants and that this wouldn't be precedent setting. So my clients would would be okay if it was very narrow. I understand the arguments from both the AG and the comments that have been made, though. Thank you.
Ms. Connor.
Good morning, Amanda Connor from Connor and Connor. I just wanted to make a comment on the record that in regards to a statement Ms. Durrett made, I do believe that there were several medical licensees that were provisional, that when the one-to-one opened, it was understood that that may be their only opportunity to get a one-to-one dual license. I know our law firm advised our clients to go ahead and apply, and I know several in many counties with moratoriums did seek that opportunity, even though they were provisional, because it was the statute did not expressly state that there would be additional one-to-one open application periods. I do know the statute now allows for application periods, but it's not that one-to-one that was contemplated prior. So I just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Douglas, for the record, for myself, looking at this, I don't think the petition that's been put before us meets its duty, so to speak, of providing us with sufficient information to go forward, nor am I of the mindset at this point to approve that the petition that's been offered to us. I think there's some legal impediments at this time. However, in light of some action we've looked at in another area, I think it's the responsibility of this board to recommend that information be looked at by the board as to what the need is for additional licensing round. If nothing else, to get this information so we have it available before the next legislative session, so that legislature is not blind as to what is going on in our state, nor are we blind as to what is going on in the state, so that the opportunity to engage in the industry and to keep the industry on a certain level so that the people in the industry remain able to make a profit. Because there's always a question of need. Do we need to open it up? We don't know the answer to that, nor was that information presented to us at this time. That's my statement. If other board members wish to weigh in, please do so. But I would, at the conclusion of this, depending on what else I hear, I'm leaning toward making a motion to deny the request without prejudice and refer to staff to look at the needs for additional licensing. But that's, I haven't made the motion because I want to see if other board members have differing thoughts at Swaim.
Member Drett, I agree with the sentiments. I agree the petition hasn't met the initial requirements, and I just don't think this language is the right way to go about it, because it does allow potential licensees to determine when there's a license period instead of the agency. And I also think that, but I do think, I think we can't just say, well, there hasn't been a market demand as required. I think we then need to discuss, maybe not do it now, but discuss when there would be a market demand study. So I agree with the chairman.
Mr. Chairman, this is Board Member Nylander. I'm in agreement with both your comments and Member Durrett. I think the petition is deficient in as much as the language doesn't comport with what would be required in our regulations. And I'm concerned that the statute doesn't even provide the authority for us to even go in that direction. And the one for one license thing seems to me that there may be a way to revive it, but I don't know that there is. And I don't know that this is something that, you know, the legislature may have to take this up again, because the fact that they repealed these provisions is troubling to me in terms of our authority to go forward. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I also agree, and I will also second the motion.
For the record, that was merit. Then I would put a motion on the floor to deny the petition without prejudice at this time. Additionally, recommend that staff, Mr. Klimas, begin the process to at least look at the marketing study as to need for additional licensing. Appreciate the memorandum by the Attorney General's office, since giving us a background and the intricacies of the statutes and changing of the lay of the land, so to speak. But anyway, that's the long-winded. Basic motion is to deny without prejudice and look for a marketing study. We had a motion premature. Do we have a second to now motion so stated?
Okay, now a second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any additional discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any debate? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 11, we're going to hold at this point. I'll come right back to it, but if we can have the briefing to the board from our executive director.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. A couple things today. First, we had 420 last week. This is the cannabis holiday, as we've done every year in the past since the CCB has taken over. Our audit and inspection teams were out in the field. They did spot checks on over 50 dispensaries on that day. Happy to report only a few minor compliance issues, a couple other things that we'll need to follow up, but overall, it looked like a good and compliant day. Also, just of note, preliminary data shows that we had over 200,000 retail transactions across the state. That's up roughly 12% from the transactions last year. Dollar amounts stayed relatively stable for the day, so just under $5 million, which was similar to last year on 420. So just a little context for that. Not bad for a Wednesday. On the next item, just wanted to provide the board with an update on White Pine County and some conversations that we had, staff, myself included, with White Pine County. This is following the February board meeting where the board heard a petition from White Pine County, similar to some of the issues that we've discussed on a new licensing round or to provide for new licenses. They did send some correspondence. They wanted to discuss that matter again, actually, at this board meeting. We had communication with White Pine County. Actually, County Manager Mike Wiebel came down and we had the opportunity to meet in person. We had a very good, positive, productive meeting with County Manager Wiebel. We were able to listen to White Pine County's desires, concerns. We were able to also discuss what staff feels strongly about, and I believe the board does too, is that we are in support of all counties across the state, all jurisdictions being able to diversify their economy and certainly participate in this industry. However, there's a few things that have to happen before we go down that road. We just discussed the market stability study, or the market study, which is in the works, which will go out to an RFP process shortly. So that is happening. And also the mechanism to issue licenses. We're creating that blueprint right now with consumption lounges, but that mechanism doesn't exist yet in our regulations. And finally, and I do believe that there's going to be other opportunities for jurisdictions, White Pine and other counties and other jurisdictions to participate or bring licenses in outside of a licensing round, likely, through the discussions during next session on the transferability of licenses outside of the jurisdiction of origin. And that will provide additional opportunity. That's something that we plan on discussing. I believe that's something that we're in support of. Obviously, in those conversations, we will have to, or we would likely move to exclude, a Clark County and a Washoe County as part of that. We don't want all the licensees to move into Clark County or Washoe County, but allowing for that movement outside of those two population centers is something that may provide, given how those conversations go, counties such as White Pine and others to enter this market. So again, I just wanted to put that on the record. I appreciate White Pine County and County Manager Mike Weeble for the effort to come down and discuss these things with us. Obviously, strong relationships with our local jurisdictions are very important. So wanted to make sure the board was up to speed on that. And finally, just as a notice, this Friday at 10 o'clock will be our third full workshop on the consumption lounge regulations. It starts at 10 o'clock in this room. We are very close to the finish line, and we anticipate this will be our last workshop on consumption lounges. So please review, provide your comments. We will go through only the changes that we've made since the last draft was released, and look forward to bringing the regulatory part of this process to an end and moving forward. So that concludes my report, Chair. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from board members? Hearing none, I will move the agenda. At this point, noting on number 13, our next meeting date is May 24th, 2022. Item 14, items for future agenda from any board member. If they have anything, or if not today, if they would get it to the chair or to our executive director. And I come back to item number 11. We have a petition pursuant to NRS 678B 630 from a Mr. Paul Burgess for fiscal action. This is as to suitability for licensing social equity. We note for the record that pursuant to NRS 241.03, the board may conduct a closed meeting to consider the character, allegations of misconduct, professional competency, or physical and mental health of a person so requested. If not, it can be an open meeting. Mr. Burgess, do you have any request as of that?
For the record, Paul Michael Burgess, Chairman Douglas, Executive Douglas, and distinguished board members, I will go for a closed meeting.
Okay. With that being said, I would ask our Deputy Attorney General, we do have public comment. I would need to hold that until this is done. Is that correct?
Yes. You could do public comment before, but you would need an opportunity to bring people back in at the end because any action taken needs to happen in open session.
Understand. Then what I would like to do is to hold our public comment. If anyone wishes to make public comment about anything else, we would, as stated by our Attorney General, then take our personnel matter as suitability. And then once we weigh in open record as to our vote is on that, if there's additional public comment, we would then take that. So, Mr. Burgess, if you would have a seat to see if we have public comment as to any other items that anyone wishes to weigh in, please do so. So we would open up public comment.
Great. Thank you. Is there anybody in Carson City wishing to provide public comment at this time?
There's no public comment this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to provide public comment? Ms. Goins?
Good morning. Aisha Goins with Black Joy Consulting on behalf of CEIC, Cannabis Equity and Inclusion Community. I am just bringing attention to the 80th session AB 533 Section 64, subsection 4, the board shall by regulations establish a pilot program for identifying opportunities for an emerging small cannabis business to participate in the cannabis industry as used in this subsection. Emerging small cannabis business means a cannabis related business that, and then it goes on to A, B, and C. I will leave this for comment. I am just asking for an update to see where we are on this space, and I would be welcome to it in next meeting. Thank you very much.
Is there any other individual wishing to provide public comment in Las Vegas? I see no more public comment, Chair.
That being the case, then we will return to item number 11. This would be a closed session for the first part until we have our official vote on the record. So we would ask that those in the audience not connected to this petition, please exit at this time. Then we will come back into full session. We're back live. We're back on record at this time. We are missing one board member who stepped out, so I'll go back off the record, give her an opportunity to return in case she wishes to weigh in.
Excellent.
We're back on the record. We have a full board present at this time as a petition filed pursuant to NRS 678B 630 as to Paul Michael Burgess. For the record, I will make the motion to deny without prejudice at this time. It's my feeling that we are prohibited from taking action due to the statutory 10-year period in this particular case. That would be my motion as the specific item. I have another comment, but I'll be as in this first. Do we have a second as to this?
Member Drat, I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Matter carries unanimously. Additionally, I would ask that our executive director come back in 60 days with a report and as to two items. One, as to the concern of the ability to work with the industry, not be in the industry. We can get some guidelines as to that, or at least start the machinery for understanding what can and can't be done, at least a report of where we're at. And secondly, as to the information submitted, if we can get it updated, what the department feels about that kind of activity of reporting Delta 8, Delta 9, and some other things that are out there. If you could give us a report on that, that would be my request. We don't need a motion approval for that, just that's a request of the chair. With that, that's our action today. Thank you, sir.
I wanted to ask. Paul Michael Burgess, for the record, sorry I didn't bring this up before. Does this, to get some more clarification, does this affect the drone business? Since the drone business is a third party, does that consist of?
My first answer is I don't know. And that's kind of why I asked for kind of a report about where's our line? Do we have a moving line in terms as an outside vendor working with, not on a contract basis, but not necessarily directly involved? Can we make a line? Get a better understanding, start that process.
Thank you. Thank you, board.
With that, we will open up our second public comment period if anyone else has anything else. For the record, I will just say in the last hearing, one of the major concerns this board has, because we're a creature of statute, is as to the term social equity. It's a hope that's been thrown out for a lot of people, but in many cases, it possibly will be an unfulfilled hope because the legislature didn't give us sufficient authority to enact that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Member Nylander. Just to follow up on your comment, I personally have been opposed to these sort of blanket exclusions for people who've had a criminal history, unless it's related to the industry that's being regulated. So for example, in gaming, there are no exclusions. Each case is considered on its merits, unless it was a crime against gaming. And that's just my personal view. And but I agree with you that it doesn't matter what I think because the law says what it says and it excludes people that fit into those categories from consideration for even an agent card. So that's just a comment. I wanted to follow up on your comment.
Thank you.
On something, Member Dret, for the record, I think it does matter that the board, this is what the board thinks, because I think we should take that to the legislature next session. And I do think cannabis in particular, even the excluded felonies that involve cannabis should be repealed because cannabis has a unique history that gaming doesn't, in that people were over prosecuted for crimes that other people got a free pass on. So I think the idea of social equity in this field would entail removing those excluded felonies, especially when they include cannabis.
That's hard to record on the record. With that, do we have any additional public comment? Because if we don't, we would be adjourning the meeting.
You want me to go to Carson?
Yes.
Great. Any public comment in Carson City?
No comment.
All right. Any final public comment in Las Vegas today?
Hello,
Good morning.
Board. Nicole Bafong, for the record, representing the Chamber of Cannabis and Minorities for Medical Marijuana. I just want to say thank you so much for your hard work. I understand that my suggestion made to the board is going to be included in the regulations that are going to be suggested or the advisements, and I really appreciate it regarding to wraps that are used inside of these dispensaries. But I just want to thank you for all your hard work. I will not be able to be at the meeting on Friday, but I'm looking forward to what these regulations and the application process. And I just want to say thank you again for the work that you're putting in to make this a fair process and a transparent process. And so we look forward to working together to make this a very inclusive and diverse industry. So thanks again. And that's it.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment in Las Vegas? I do not see any.
That being the case, we are now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.